Okay, picking up where we left off on page 67, we're talking about either manually or automatically changing column or row width and height. This one was kind of weird because I put a hard carriage return in here, and so it really couldn't help me much. Anyway, the bottom line is the way I typically do it is I either double click, select multiple things, or select the one that I want, and double click. It didn't give me what I wanted. Oh, yeah, it did, because I didn't scratch this one out. So it went to the optimal size. Anyway, so wait till you get the double-headed arrow, either on the column. And remember how you don't have to have just one of them. You have to select multiple ones and then hit the one. Okay, cool. So optimal ways to doing that. Clearing. On page 70, they talk about clearing stuff. Now, clearing is not exactly the same thing as deleting. And this is going to come into play a little later on when we're talking about other types of attributes, like we have color as a background, or we have grids and formulas and blah, 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 all these other things. But right now, I can go in here and just highlight several things, right? Highlight that. And I want that to go away. So I want to clear that. It's clearing the contents of the cell, but not necessarily the attributes, the color and all that rest of that stuff. So making sure that I'm somewhere inside the square when I do a right click. If I go out here to do a right click, I lose my selection. Okay, so highlight something, right click while you're inside the cell, and then go in here and say clear contents, and it just erases the stuff that's in there. Okay, pretty good. On page 72, they start talking about multiple worksheets. Remember we talked about one workbook can have multiple worksheets? And we had these tabs down at the bottom that you can just kind of scroll through all these other kinds of guys. So this is all what it's about. This is, how you switch between the two. Let's say I want to make another brand new worksheet for my workbook. All you have to be is anywhere on one of these tabs. It doesn't matter where. And right click, and then you can do insert. Now, insert is going to come up and say, I'm pretty sure you really want a worksheet. I mean, come on. So yes, doing, and it just put me a new worksheet in there. Now, remember how it always went, either to the left or up? Look what it did. It put it right here. So now I've created a brand new worksheet in my workbook. And so I don't know what this is. This is, demo, okay? Well, I don't like the word sheet 1 because that's not very descriptive at all. Maybe I want demo data in here. So I'm going to rename that tab. And so that tab is actually a worksheet, isn't it? So now I'm just going to right click on this guy, and one of the things you can do is rename it. And I'm going to go in here and say, demo data. And now that tab is now called demo data. And when I want to make the demo data go away, right click on it and hit delete, and poof, now we're back to the same number of worksheets we had before. Okay. That's not all that tough. So moving and copying worksheets is a little weird. If I go here and click, on the active worksheet, remember there's only one worksheet can be active at any one time. I right click here and say move or copy. Now this is kind of weird because you could have like two Excel files open, two Excel workbooks open, and you could move a worksheet from one to the other, or you can just copy it and make another copy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say move or copy. Okay? And so it's going to ask me to which workbook. Well, I only have one, so that's kind of a dumb question. And then the next one is, by default, it's going to move it. Well, maybe I don't want to move it. Maybe I want to copy it. So if I say copy, all it's going to do is just make a second one out there. And it put a little 2 with bow legs around it to let me know this is the second version of that. Okay? So that's basically all you need to know about multiple worksheets. Moving and copying, creating new ones, deleting, inserting, and renaming. On page 76, they talk about the autofill property. And the autofill property is pretty doggone cool when, let's say you're trying to, you've got something and it's numbered, 1 through 100. Well, how tedious would that be to go 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, come on. If I had to do 100 of those things, my eyes would be crossed almost immediately. So thankfully, there's a really cool way called autofill. So have you noticed that the selected cell has this little box way over here in the corner? I'm going to zoom in here to show you. So that's the guy I'm talking about right there. In the lower right hand corner is this extra little box, okay? And that's and if you have the mouse, you know how it changes colors? When I get right there, ooh, it changes to a different shape. See, I get the plus sign, okay, the fat plus. I get the four-headed arrow, meaning, hey, do you want to move, right? Remember the move operation? But when I go to that corner, and that corner only, I get the skinny plus sign. And the skinny plus sign means autofill. So now if I drag that down or, you know, to the right, it's going to say, what the... Instead of me typing a bunch of stuff, it's going to try to infer what you want. Now I'm going to grab that and drop it down to here. And it's going to say, well, more than likely you just wanted this to be 5s. Okay? Because you had a 5 to begin with, and so you drug it. So it says, well, more than likely that's what you want. Well, what if, for example, you wanted to count to 100? So you want to tell it, no. I don't want you to just copy the cell. I want you to increment them. Okay? Now, the easy way to do this is to select more than one cell. So if I select 4 and 5, okay, now the machine's pretty smart. It's going to say, no, wait a minute now. These numbers are in sequence. So now when I grab this and drag it down, it automatically did the counting for me. You select 1, it copies 1. You know, if I select 5, it's going to put a 5 in all those spots. If I select 2 of them, it's going to say, ooh, hey, let's try that with dates, okay? So I'm going to go over here, and let me just grab a date, copy, paste, and I'm going to do a paste here, and I'm going to change this to the 25th. Okay, so now I have 2 dates. What do you think? If I grab both of these, grab the little plus sign, drag it, woohoo! Isn't that pretty cool? Instant calendar. All right. Okay. Now, you may notice that when you let go, okay, after you've dragged the thing and let go, there's this second chance button. And the second chance button is this autofill property guy. And that basically says, look, I did what I thought you wanted, but maybe that's not what you wanted. So after you've let go, you can look at it and go, whoa, that ain't what I had in mind. You can hit this little button here and it'll tell you, what do you want? Do I want the fill series, which is what I did, copy cells, which is kind of weird because now I just copied 24, 25, 24, 25, 24, 25, right? And there's some other ones dealing with formatting, which we don't have to deal with until a couple more chapters. Okay, so I kind of like that. After you've expanded the column or row, and if it didn't do what you wanted it to do, you could say, well, I changed my mind. I don't want you to fill. I want you to copy. Cool. That's perfectly all right. On page 78, we're going to skip the preview, export, and print stuff. That's not something you can really demo in an online world. So we're going to move on to page 80, where they talk about the views. Now, there's multiple views for this thing. This is the normal view. Down here at the bottom, there's 3 little views. Let me zoom in. So this is the normal view. This is what they call the page view. And we'll get into that in just a minute. So the first one, the page layout. Now this is going to show kind of sort of what it's going to look like when it's printed, okay? And this is actually kind of sort of good. I'm going to have to scroll over. Okay, here we go. And so it has a spot for like looking at the margins and adding a header and all sorts of other stuff. It's pretty cool. It is, you know, adding a footer and, you know, what's going to appear on the next page. It's got some good stuff. The next one is this page break preview. Now, it's essentially the same thing, except that, for example, this page broke a little weird because of the Mary Had a Little Lamb stuff thrown out there. And maybe you wanted this column to fit on that page. So the page break just shows you where it did break. Okay? This is going to tell you where you want it to break. Not, okay, tough shit, here's where it is. This one is, well, here's where I'm going to put it unless you tell me otherwise. So I'm going to click on this guy. And it's going to show me this is going to appear on page 1. And this is going to appear on page 2. Isn't that pretty cool? Well, what if, for example, I didn't want that? What if, for example, I wanted the Mary Had a Little Lamb to also fit on page 1? I'm just going to grab this little blue line and stretch it. Okay? Now that's going to appear on page 1 and that's going to appear on page 2. Now, admittedly, it's going to be scrunched, right? The more you put in there, the text is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? I mean, you can't, there's no something for nothing going on here. So page break preview is pretty doggone good to see what's going to fit on a page. And if I go back to this page layout, now I can go in and add my headers and footers and things of that nature. So it's all kind of cool about how to go in and show where the default breaks are and allows you to change them. Page layout shows you how it's going to be printed in headers and footers and margins. When it comes time to print this thing, I'm going to go, there's a couple more things that need to be done. Actually, this is kind of a dumb example. I need something that's bigger. Let me see if I can find a decent example. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. Okay. Let's, I'm going to do, okay, that's a dumb one either. Okay, just bear with me. If I go in here and say print, and print, one of the things is it could come up and ask me is, you know, how to go in and change this page layout. And so here's the margins and orientations and all the rest of this thing. But this thing called print titles, okay, I kind of sort of like that. What that really means is if I have a very long Excel spreadsheet and it breaks between pages, right, the heading is on that first page, but when I print the second page, there's nothing there. I mean, the data is there, but I can't see what the headings are. So what this little guy comes up and says is that on the sheet, what do you want printed, repeated at the row, at the top? If you want, at every single page, you want that heading to appear every single time, you just go in and select that row and put it right there, okay? And I don't have a good example of doing that. So remind me, as if you could do that, remind me to do this for real when we have some better data. Okay. All right, so that's basically all I really wanted to tell you about printing. If you want, you know, headers to repeat, you have to go into this print layout, print titles thing. Another one is scaling. When you go in here to print, that most of the time you can tell, you know, the default for no scaling whatsoever. There's a really popular one is fit everything on one page. Fit all the columns on one page. Okay, that made it pretty tiny. The other one is, you know, fit all the rows so they fit on one page. Okay, that's pretty cool. Or you can say, I want absolutely everything to fit on one page. Now, you may have to have a magnifying glass, but these are the most common zooms there are. No scaling whatsoever. Full-blown, fit columns, fit rows, and then that's it. Okay, we have reached the end of this chapter. Whew, thank goodness. And I'll see you again in some future chapter.